Today we have a special treat. I am really excited that I was able to interview Lynn Schulte. She is a birth healing specialist and a pelvic health physical therapist and has been for over 30 years. So, we are going to jump into my interview with her and share with you some of the amazing things that she has found and teaches pregnant women and postpartum about the pelvic floor and stuff that you can do to have a more smooth birth. Hi, I'm Jocelyn, host of the Positive in Pregnancy and Motherhood podcast. I help pregnant women and mothers to find positivity in their season of life through changing their thoughts to work for them and not against them. I help mothers find the small, doable steps in thought and action without making drastic changes to their everyday mom life. And I can help you. Thanks for joining. Welcome to the Positivity in Pregnancy and Motherhood podcast. I'm Jocelyn, and I am excited today because I have a special guest. Her name is Lynn Schulte. Did I say your last name right, Lynn?
It's Schulte.
Schulte. Okay,
Yes.
Schulte.
Yeah.
She is a birth healing specialist and a pelvic health physical therapist. And I'm really excited to have her on the show because I've never had anybody like that talk about this. I will read you her bio and then we'll get into our topic for today. Lynn Schulte has been a birth healing specialist and pelvic health physical therapist for over 30 years. She founded the Institute for Birth Healing, an educational platform for practitioners, and Center for Birth Healing, her clinical practice. She has been helping thousands of moms heal from all the issues women experience after birth, and is now teaching courses to body workers to help them do the same. She found a common birth pattern that shows up in the pelvis after birth and knows how to release these patterns effectively. Knowing we are more than just our bodies, Lynn works on all levels, physically, energetically, and spiritually, with women to help them access their full potential. She also teaches bodyworks how to respectfully work with the body's tissues and access and use their intuition in bodywork sessions. She offers a certification process to help birth professionals become birth healing specialists. Lynn holds a Bachelor of Science in Physical Therapy from St. Louis University, St. Louis, Missouri, and is on a mission to improve postpartum care worldwide. What a great mission.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad we're able to make this work. I was having
Uh,
some technical difficulties earlier, but we are here. So what we're
yeah.
actually going to talk about today is Lynn is going to share with us her expertise on how to help us to have a smoother birth. So maybe tell us a little bit about you, and then you can kind of go into that a little bit.
So being a pelvic floor physical therapist, pelvic health physical therapist, there's lots of different kind of names for it, but I work in the pelvic space. I do intravaginal work with the pelvic floor muscles. And when I moved from Seattle to Boulder, Colorado in 2008, I had to start my practice all over again. And I was just seeing postpartum clients. And it helped me to identify patterns that I kept seeing in every postpartum client that I was working with. And I started noticing like what really was going on in the body after having a baby. And, I was working with a lot of moms who were traumatized by their birth. And I used the research of really understanding what happens in the pelvic space to get a baby out and what I was finding in the postpartum bodies, and started applying that work to my pregnant clients, and really realized that there's like, we're doing a disservice to pregnant people in I think the world, and especially in the US here, in that we do a great job of keep a mom alive and baby alive, but we don't do a good job of assessing the birth door. Like nobody's really taken a look at that. And I've seen it way too many times in the clients that I've seen postpartum, women having 50-hour labors to find out that their tailbone was in the way. It's like, why didn't we assess to make that? Why didn't we know that the tailbone was in the way in the first place? And
Yes.
so like nobody's assessing the birth door. The birth door is the pelvis and the pelvic floor muscles. I started to train midwives in how to release the pelvic floor muscles, and they told me that when a labor stalled or baby wasn't coming on out, if they went in and just released the pelvic floor muscles, baby slid right on out. And
Amazing.
it really is. And so taking what I know from what I learned with the postpartum mamas, I started applying it to my pregnant mamas and realized that there's really three key areas of the body that I like to work with when my pregnant clients come to see me. And when we address these three areas of the body, we're helping baby to be able to get in the best position to come on out. And we're also making sure that the doorway is able to open for baby to come on out. And then the other thing I love to do in my pregnancy sessions with my clients is really teach someone how to effectively push.
Mm.
And that is one of the biggest factors that lead to problems with prolapse and tearing in the pelvic floor muscles is when we have what we call reciprocal pushing, meaning you're trying to bear down to get the baby out, but you're contracting your pelvic floor muscles at the same time. You're fighting yourself.
Mm. So it's counterproductive.
Very much so. And what's also counterproductive is having tensions in the belly and in your uterine ligaments that don't allow your baby to get into the best position to come on out. So babies go where there's space. So the position of your baby in your belly should be way more prioritized in our care of pregnant clients, especially when we get closer to the labor, to the due date. And a lot of midwives, a lot of doctors just don't even think about that.
No,
And
I
that,
agree. They don't. I have had 5 babies and I've never been talked to one of them about the position. It wasn't until I had a doula and she mentioned it.
right. It is, so that it's just amazing to me that we have these providers here, like OBs, they're really good at saving you from your birth.
Yes.
They're really good at saving your life and saving your baby's life, and they know how to cut a baby out if they need to, but they're not very good at planning and helping you to have a successful physiologic vaginal birth. And there's, I tell all my clients, when you step into that hospital, you are at their mercy. They're going to do their protocol to you, and you have to fight tooth and nail to avoid their their interventions. And what we need to remember is one intervention leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to a C-section. And I truly believe that if we were preparing moms' bodies better for birth, and practitioners and providers knew how to help babies position better in the body, that we could drastically change our C-section rate. Especially if we really taught women how to effectively push, how
Yeah,
to effectively push.
I
Because
love that.
I'm surprised. I would say 50% of my pregnant clients that come in are tightening their pelvic floor as they go to push their baby out.
Yeah.
And that's fighting yourself. You're just setting yourself up for a much, much longer birth. And that's what, for me, a smoother birth is number one, making sure baby can get into the best position possible by giving them balance and space in your abdomen and in your uterine ligaments. So if you notice that your baby is only inhabiting one side of your belly, it's only it's off to one side. So you should be able to put your hands on either side of your belly and be able to push the belly as far to the left, and it should go the same distance to the right. And that's more balanced uterus. your baby's head should be right above your pubic bone when its head is engaged. Like some doctors are more concerned about head position because they really don't want to go into labor if the baby's breech. So they do, some will do the ultrasound to check to make sure baby's head is down, but they're not checking to see if that head is heading into a hip.
Yeah.
That head could be off heading into a hip. And then you start labor, and then the uterus has to help the baby's head find that opening in your pelvis. You could decrease hours of labor by getting some body work or doing some things to help make sure that your baby's head is right in the middle of the pelvic opening. And Spinning Babies is an incredible website, great work, great body of work. And there's exercises you can do to try to help bring balance to your uterine ligaments. And I highly recommend that, especially if you know that your baby is only hanging out on one side of your belly. If baby's only on one side of the belly, it's a high likelihood that that baby is probably going to enter into your pelvis in an asynclitic manner, meaning the baby's head is coming in crooked. It's not coming in the most optimal position. And that is what helps you to have a smoother birth. When baby's head is midline and it's in a good position, that is what can minimize the hours of your labor. And seeing someone to do body work on you, to assess your uterine ligaments, to assess baby's head, the baby's head by 36 weeks, we ideally want that baby's head down by the pubic bone, and we want the fundus directly on top of it. Well, tightness in your round ligaments, everybody kind of gets those twings or twangs in your round ligaments throughout pregnancy. And sometimes that can just be from the baby's repositioning. But if you're only getting those round ligaments on one side, that's a sign of dysfunction. That's a sign there's an imbalance in those round ligaments, and they need to be balanced. They need to be released so that those round ligaments can be more even. And I have, if you guys really want to see some cool pictures, on my website, Institute for Birth Healing, I have blog posts, and I've written 2 blog posts recently that are about baby's position in the belly, and you can see before and after pictures where I take a pregnant belly that the baby is more wider side to side than it is up and down. And
Mm.
you release those round ligaments and you do an inversion and you come back up, and that baby is way more vertical in that pelvic space, in the abdominal space. And it's just incredible the amount of change you can make in one session, just trying to help get things released and create more, excuse me, more space for baby.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
one other thing I want to just for the abdomen, something that I find very, very commonly in people that have this that cause problems is anyone who's had an appendectomy removed, or an appendectomy, which is your appendix removed. That causes scar tissue and creates a pulling to the uterus to the right. So if
Oh,
any of you have
interesting.
had, yeah, if you've ever had an appendectomy, usually you'll find that that baby's going to inhabit more of the right side of your belly. And when you go to try to push your belly to the left, it's not going to go half as far as when you try to push to the right. So those are all signs that you might want to think about getting some body work done. Find someone that can help support you in creating balance and space in your abdomen. It's so, so important. And I have a list of people that I've trained in my directory. If you go to instituteforbirthhealing.com, and on the other resources at the bottom is the directory. And you can click on that and see if there's someone nearby you that's taken my pregnancy class, because they know how to release the uterus and the round, the uterosacral ligaments, your broad ligaments. All those can help baby get into better position. So then that's the abdomen. The second area I like to assess is your pelvic bones. Your pelvic bones they're the doorway. The sacrum is the hinge for birth. It needs to move backwards to open up that pelvic inlet for baby to come on in. And then once it hits the pelvic floor muscles, the pelvic bones need to go the opposite direction. Your tailbone needs to lift backwards. Your sit bones need to splay apart so that the outlet opens and baby can come on out. So
Okay.
it's so important that the pelvic bones can move for birth. And so I like to assess to see, have you had any falls on your tailbone, your ischiums, your buttocks? Those can cause problems and not allow the bones to be able to move as freely as they should. And then the last area is your pelvic floor muscles. You need to have what I like to call the pelvic floor muscles are the stoplight for birth. If you have red light tone in your pelvic floor muscles, meaning if you had a fist, if you curled your hand into a fist and it's held tight and nobody can pry it open, that's red light tone. If you have a fist that someone held closed and someone has to kind of pry to make your hand open up, that's yellow light tone, but they can open it up, but they have to work at it. Yellow light tone is a lightly held closed fist that can just open up easily. That's
Okay.
what I'm talking about, red light. That's what your pelvic floor muscles need to be like. And I encourage everyone who is pregnant to insert your thumb in vaginally. Do not press down right at 6 o'clock because so think of it as a clock with your thumb pointed straight down at the bottom. That's 6 o'clock. That's where your rectum is. You want to come off to like 4 and 5 o'clock on the left and 7 and 8 o'clock on the right hand side and press down. Put your thumb in fully and then press down. And can those muscles give and lengthen as you press down? Or are they a brick?
Okay, I have a question. Is that similar to like perineal massage? Is that the same thing?
It's somewhat similar depending on what your definition of perineal massage is.
Okay.
Some people think of just like rubbing the opening side to side, and to
Okay.
me, that's just working on the skin. If you're working perineally on the muscles and the muscles deep in the vaginal space, where I'm talking about 7, 8 o'clock on the right, 4 and 5 o'clock on the left, those need to be able to spring and come down. And when you get good tone in those pelvic floor muscles and they can release and let go, then I feel your likelihood of tearing is much less.
Gotcha.
Tear- Tearing occurs when you have too much tone in the pelvic floor muscles and the baby has to push past it and has to like tear it open in order to come on out. Like the muscles aren't able to lengthen. They need to be able to lengthen for that baby to come on out.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So you kind of stick your own thumb in your vaginal area, and you said what sides against 4 o'clock and
Yeah, if you think of it as a clock, 4 and 5 o'clock on the left, and just press down at a diagonal. So
okay.
press your thumb down at a diagonal and just see, is there springiness? Does it give? Can you lengthen it? Can it come back up? Or when you press down on it, does it not move? If it doesn't move, that's red light tone. And
Okay, and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just gonna say, does this rubbing or pressing, does that help to loosen it?
it can.
Okay.
Um, so adding pressure to it, breathing down into it, working on figuring out what will it take for those muscles to let go to be able to lengthen. And truly, if you have bilateral tone, so meaning that it's tight on 4 and 5 o'clock and it's tight at 7 and 8 o'clock, sometimes there's all different reasons why we have increased tone in our pelvic floor muscles. But the number one reason I find most commonly is a feeling of safety and security, or are not having the feeling of safety and security. Our pelvic floor muscles, when they're tight, they're trying to keep us safe. And
Hmm.
if they don't feel safe, then they can't let go. And if you're able to do this springiness and bounciness in your home, and if you have tight muscles and you're able to get them to let go and you can relax by working with them, you need to imagine yourself in that hospital because you walk into that hospital and you may feel unsafe. It's unfamiliar, these people you don't know. If you're not a trustworthy kind of person or you've had any type of trauma happen to you, your body's immediate response is tension. And tension in the pelvic floor muscles is going to stop those muscles from being able to relax, to let go. So think about being in that situation. See what happens to your pelvic floor muscles as you're working on them.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I am not a big fan of hospitals either, and but I did try and tour the hospital and like get prepared so that, like you say, I wouldn't tense up
Yes,
having
yeah.
my baby because like you say, that leads to tearing, and I tearing is not enjoyable.
No, no, it's not. And just know that those pelvic floor muscles are just so important. There are in spinning on the Spinning Babies website, there is a maneuver that you can do to help release the pelvic floor muscles, and you have to drop your leg off the side of a bed. You have to do it with a partner, and you don't want to roll off the bed. So but that is an awesome way to help relax your pelvic floor muscles too. You can do that in birth. So please find yourself a doula who is familiar with spinning babies techniques so that they can do that with you during your labor. That can
Yes,
be
my
helpful.
doula, I did have a doula for my fifth baby, and she showed my husband and I how to do this spinning baby stuff, these
Yeah.
exercises, and he and I did that, and I did not tear on baby five, the only one I have not tore on.
Nice. Well
Yeah,
done.
I was
Well
very
done.
happy about that. So I can attest that doing these types of things makes a difference.
Yes, yes, it's so important. And then the other thing that you can do with your partner is have them insert two fingers into your vaginal space. And again, remember 6 o'clock is where your bowel is. So have them separate their fingers to be on either side of the bowel. So if they're about an inch and a half, maybe 2 inches wide, and they reach back as far as they can and press down, and you'll know you're on the pelvic floor muscles if you go to contract or do a Kegel, they'll feel movement underneath their fingers. Okay, so then they know they're on the muscles. And then your job to work with your partner is to figure out how to push their fingers out of your vagina. And what your partner should feel is this beautiful lengthening and pushing down and away from you with their fingers. And that's your goal. And practice it in all different positions on your back with your knees bent up, on your side, on hands and knees. Do it in tall kneeling, do it in squatting, and really practice. Can you let go? Can you lengthen your pelvic floor muscles in all of those different positions?
Gotcha. That's an interesting one. I we did not do that one, but we did do spinning babies, but I can see how that would be helpful, especially if you have had like you're on your first or second baby,
Yes.
where they're maybe not quite as stretched. Uh,
Right, right. It's just so important to figure out how to most effectively push. So that's one of the things I hear for women in my postpartum that come to see me postpartum, and they've had a more traumatic birth, or it was just a more challenging birth. The number one thing I hear them say is, yeah, they told me I didn't really know how to push effectively. And that's, like, so you just got to figure out what works for you. And one of the things for everybody to play with and to think about is having a baby is very similar to having a bowel movement. You need to be able to generate force from up above, but yet lengthen your pelvic floor muscles to allow that stool to come on out. So if you can practice, how do you get a stool going? That's very similar to how you push a baby out effectively.
yeah, I love that. I've heard it. I don't know if this is a term you like or use, but I've heard like breathing the baby down, and I've even heard like
Yes.
practicing when you're having a bowel movement to breathe it down instead of bear it down.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That's so important. So, so important. And yeah, and that's so critical, I think, in birth too, is some hospitals and some providers really don't understand a physiological birth. Most doctors have never actually witnessed a non-intervened birth. They've never seen a physiological birth happen. And that means that mom is able to birth on her own with nobody touching her, nobody intervening in any way. And so they don't know what that looks like. And they're used to interrupting the process. And I think, if you're planning on birthing in the hospital and you don't want those interventions, you need to have that support from a really good doula who's well experienced and can help you navigate and fend off the nurses and the doctors who are want to give you an IV and give you this and give you that. And they want to facilitate the birth instead of just allowing it to happen. And I think the more we intervene, the more chance for more intervention that occurs. And one of the things that happens in births that I hear a lot is that they told me to push and I didn't have the urge.
Mm.
And sometimes, I wish it, one of the things, if you're listening to this and you are pregnant, one of the things I want you to ask your labor team, what happens if we wait?
Yeah.
What happens if we just give this some time? Because what you need to understand, as soon as you walk in the doors of the hospital, you're on a time clock and you need to be progressing. And if you're not, then they're going to start intervening. And if baby's doing okay and you're doing okay, ask the question, what would happen if we just waited? And sometimes is you just got to get into a different position. And if you can not have an epidural, then you can really listen to your body and get a sense for what does my body want to do? And that's what I would really encourage all of you that are pregnant is get connected to your body. Turn on some music and listen to what your body wants to do to that music. Listen to the instincts coming from inside your body. What do I want to eat right now? What does my body want to fuel it right now? And asking those questions and staying as connected as you can to your body. That is what can guide you best during birth. Birth is a dance between your body and the baby. The baby knows, the baby is so smart and so conscious. It is feeling and experiencing everything that you're feeling and experiencing. So talk to it. Talk to it like you would an adult and let that baby know everything that is happening during your birth process. If you're going to get an epidural, let the baby know you're getting an epidural and it's going to feel like mommy goes away. Because as soon as they put that epidural in, the baby, your body disconnects. Baby can't feel your body anymore. And so it's lost. And that's why it can slow down labor. And it can also help your pelvic floor muscles to relax. So I'm not, poo-pooing epidurals. I'm just letting you know the reality of what's happening when they give you an epidural is baby feels like you're gone. So talk to your baby and let your baby know, hey, I'm still here, honey. It's going to feel like I'm gone away, but I'm still here. I'm in this with you. And just let them know if they're going to give you a C-section, talk to your baby and tell them, okay, babe, this is what's going to happen and let the baby know. That can help decrease the trauma that the baby goes through in the birth process. Stay connected to your baby the entire time so that you can tune into baby and baby can give you those subtle, subtle, subtle clues of maybe I need to put my leg up here. Maybe I need to get in this position. And one of the things that I hear the most in my postpartum clients is, gosh, I just knew if I could get up onto hands and knees, the baby would have come on out.
Mm.
And the people didn't allow them to, maybe because they did have an epidural. So when you do get that epidural, you minimize, you reduce your ability to move. And most hospitals want you on the bed. And so it's just this fine line dance between you and your baby. And if you're birthing at home, it's just you and the baby and maybe the midwife. When you're in the hospital, you have the whole system that you're birthing with and they've got their policies and procedures that they have to do and you need to negotiate with them. um, ask why.
Yes.
Why do you need to do this? What, is there alternatives? What happens if we just wait? Is baby doing okay? Am I doing okay? Can we just wait? Because a lot of times once you get to 10 centimeters dilation, the body, think about this physiologically. Your body just worked and took hours and hours and hours to dilate the cervix to open up to those 10 centimeters. And in the hospital, as soon as they check you and you're at 10 centimeters, they're like, okay, go ahead and push. But your body, your uterus, sometimes goes into a pause, it goes into a rest phase because it needs to gather up the energy to then be able to push your baby on out. So the uterus is actually gathering all of its fibers up to the top of the uterus to open up your cervix. And sometimes there's a pause. That pause can take an hour or two.
Oh, wow.
And then you get the urge to push. because now the uterus has regenerated, rejuvenated itself. It now has the energy to help push the baby on out. But hospitals don't like that pause. Again, you're on that timeline. We got to get this baby on out. And if you can just ask, what happens if we just wait? Can we wait to see if I get the urge to push? Can
Yeah.
we allow that urge to push to just happen? Because, when I gave birth 24 years ago, I was the only one in the hospital that had a natural childbirth. Everybody else had an epidural. I was more afraid of the epidural needle than I was of giving birth.
Mhm.
I didn't want that in my spine. And I was surprised when they were like coaching me to push. They're like, push and counting up to 10 and then stopping. And I got done and I go, why didn't I just push when my body felt like pushing and stop when it stopped? And then
Yeah.
it dawned on me that, oh, they're not used to anybody being able to feel anything.
They're used to
So they
telling
have.
you when to push.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, if you choose to not have I don't want anyone to think that I'm biased one way or another about what happens in birth. I am not. That is between you, your baby, and your body. You need to get through that birth in whatever way you need to and not suffer. If you are in labor and you are suffering, that's not okay. Please get whatever you need to stop the suffering. And
Yes.
I never tell any of my clients to avoid any position during labor because you may need to get into whatever position you need in order for that baby to come on out. So it's important that you listen to your body. Now, I do have my preferences that if everything's going smoothly, I love hands and knees as a position to push a baby on out, especially if the baby's coming too fast. Just get in that gravity neutral position of hands and knees. That can help slow things down. And then if you need to help use gravity, do a tall kneeling position. And that allows your pelvis to be free, to move, to twist, to bend, to arch, to whatever you need to do to help open it up. But when you're on your back and you're laying and your legs are up in the air, your pelvis is locked. It's got the weight of your legs and your body on it. And that sacrum needs to push back into the bed in order for the baby to come on out. So it's just a more challenging position for you and your baby. Now, it may be the best position for you and your birth experience, and that's great. But for the majority of people, being on your back is not advantageous.
No, and it
So,
doesn't allow the gravity to work with you like you've mentioned.
yeah, I mean, it could be a great position if the baby's coming really fast because actually the baby's coming uphill on your back slightly. So there's a reason for every position. And I would just really hope that you're able to tune into your body and get a sense of what your body really wants it to do. Um, and you can't do that if you choose to get a 10 or a epidural. There is there's a device called a TENS unit that is they're patches that you put on your body and it sends a little bit of electrical current, kind of like a buzziness to the patches. And the buzziness can counteract the pain signals going to your brain to help decrease the sensation of the contractions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So a TENS unit is an alternative to an epidural. It's way more precise and it works for some people and it doesn't for others. Epidurals are very variable too. Some people, it only works on one side of their body. Some people only get sensory. They don't get motor. So they don't get the complete um, release of pain too. So knowing that, I would much rather people start off with a TENS unit because it's easy to apply, it's cheap, and you can manipulate it to see if it works for you. And if it doesn't, then get an epidural. But with TENS unit, you're able to walk around, you're able to get in whatever position you want to get into. Epidural, you're limited.
Yeah, and sometimes knowing these alternatives is like great because I feel like there's a lot of, like you say, misinformation or no information about things you can do during labor. Like I didn't realize the TENS unit was a real an option that could help. So that's awesome.
You
Um,
need to you need to ask your facility to see if they have it. Now, I don't want to get into the politics of it all, but everybody needs to remember that hospitals make money when they give epidurals, and they make a hell of a lot of money when they have cesarean births. So
right.
they, this natural letting a person just birth on their own doesn't make them as much money as if they have to cut the baby on out to, help you have that birth. So that's why I truly believe that, like, there's a policy. It's a standard of care. And there is a pathway that if you're not progressing, and then they say the horrible, phrase, oh, if you don't get this baby out, you're going to need a cesarean, or, oh, baby's not doing well, it's decelerating, you got to get this baby out now. Those are all situations that can create a massive trauma response in your body. And birth can be traumatic for some people. From some experiences are very traumatic. Some experiences are just little t traumas. And I just want people to know that there is a lot that happens to the body. Um, there's a lot that happens to the body when we're giving birth, and a lot that can be held in the body after the baby comes on out. So one of the things that I have discovered in my own practice, and that I'm trying to get out into the world, is that the bones of the pelvis don't always go back to their original position after birth. And it can lead to a lot of different issues that women have postpartum, leading to back pain, pelvic pain, pain with intercourse, weakness in the pelvic floor muscles, prolapsing, all of your pelvic organs. All of that the position of the pelvic bones can be contributing to all of that. And helping to find someone that can help you get your bones back to their original position can really help. There's an exercise, there's a video that I have on my YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the show notes on how to close your bones up after birth. Jocelyn, you need to do this, okay?
Yes, where I just had a baby, I do need to do this.
Yes. So please watch the video and do it. And I just wish everybody who could do it immediately after birth. It just helps bring the bones back to their original position so that things
Awesome.
can function better. Okay. And that, I just wish everybody could do that. And please know that if you have experienced a birth that is more traumatic, getting that trauma work done, getting help, finding someone that can help support you in releasing that trauma from your body is going to really help you to be able to then recover better from birth. If you've had a traumatic birth and you don't address the trauma that you've experienced, your muscles, your bones, your ligaments are not going to be able, they're in a freeze response. They're stuck in that moment at birth, which is usually around the pushing time. And sometimes, like, your body doesn't even realize the baby came out because it's frozen in that moment in time. And it just needs help to realize that those bones can come back together, the things can soften, the body can realize that the baby is out and the labor's over. And so, if anyone is needing help or support in the trauma, the releasing of trauma from a birth, my partner that works at the Center for Birth Healing, that's my clinical practice. Her and I help women on Zoom to release that trauma from their birth, or to release that from their body. So please know there is support.
Yes, and I've been through a traumatic birth, but I made progress. And the
Right.
last two I was able to do without an epidural, and they were much better experiences. But I did have a coach and a doula, and people like you are blessings. And I feel like we just need the information out there to help us get through this these times.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You have shared so many helpful things in not only working with our pelvic floor, but for having a smoother birth. Do you have any other tips or advice for our pregnant mamas that you'd like to close with before we end today's episode?
Yeah. Usually my advice is that healing can always happen. And that's for the postpartum period. But for our pregnant period, I just want you to realize that that baby inside of you is a very conscious being, and you can connect into it and you can talk to it. So if baby's not in a great position, talk to it and see if you can help it to understand, how to help it to move into a better position for it to come on out. So know that you can prepare your body for birth. And it's not just about taking childbirth classes, but it's about understanding what I just talked about in this podcast episode today. So please take to heart what I've shared and get the body work done that you need to prior to going into labor, and make sure that your pelvis can open, your pelvic floor muscles can release, you know how to push effectively, and you can get the baby into the best position possible to come on out.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. If you want to learn further about Lynn, I have got all of her information in the show notes, and I think she will be a great resource. So thank you for being on today, and good luck with all the pelvic floor healing. And I'm going to be doing some of this myself.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for being a part of the Positive in Pregnancy and Motherhood podcast, for listening, for sharing, and most of all, for applying these tools into your own life to improve your own happiness so that you can find your own better thoughts for a better you in a positive pregnancy, in losing that stubborn baby weight, and becoming the mom you desire to be, through taking small steps in thought and action to reach your goals. If you are a mother who has an inner desire to enjoy motherhood and pregnancy better, but you are having difficulty figuring it out, I can help you. I can help you find the small, doable steps without drastic changes to your everyday mom life. Reach out, let's connect, and let's see you move forward. My name is Jocelyn, and I thank you for listening. Until next time.